This Kirblog topic was suggested by Kurilu Stromboli. If you'd like to suggest topics for videos like these, and if you want to hear me record them in my community Discord server before they release, consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/Kirbifer. This Kirblog's about my taste in music and how much it inspires me to create. Oh yeah, this Kirblog is not about Saint Seiya. Did not mean to disappoint you. Listen anyway. I picked it because it's a bomb-ass anime opening, and maybe subconsciously because today is the day that Alejandro Saab, as his Saiyu VTuber, is premiering his version 2.0 model, and he loves that show so much. So I don't know, maybe something subconsciously there, but this is going to be a cool one. So Kurilu Stromboli had commented when I was seeking Kirblog topics for this month, saying, I know that the music of TTA is pre-existing video game music, and the music of Tome is video game inspired, and that each region in the Tome RPG has a musical style that is fitting for them. Maybe you could talk about the reasons you chose certain music genres for the music of your other projects, and maybe even balancing act. So I realize I've done many Kirblogs over the years about types of music that I enjoy and music production, and you know, maybe even like top 10 favorite songs from various game series and things like that. But I've never done one about just my musical tastes in general, so I thought, you know what, this could be kind of a cool one to sort of deep dive into, you know, what goes on in my brain as to, you know, why I make the musical choices that I make for various things. So, yeah, I guess from just a basic standpoint, obviously it's just, you know, down to what I grew up listening to start with. Both my mom and dad listened to a lot of really good, you know, classic music and stuff, and I've certainly kept up with whatever was popular at the time. I remember the first time I really thought about music in any kind of like extensive way was probably when I was in like middle of elementary school, and I made my first mix CD, which had, you know, everything from like Bye 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 to you know, it had NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. It had Britney Spears. I had New Kids on the Block, or not New Kids on the Block. It was the song that had the New Kids on the Block, do Chinese food makes me sick, whatever that song was at the time. And Real Slim Shady when Eminem was kind of first hitting the scene, you know, at least for me anyway. That was my first time making a proper sort of like soundtrack to the summer of my life in, I think, 4th or 5th grade, whatever it would have been at that point, maybe 3rd grade even, I don't even know. But, and of course I played a lot of video games and watched a lot of cartoons, but and games in particular started making me think more about music in terms of how it's used for stuff like that, because up until that, I didn't think about the music I was listening to and the stuff I was watching. There was kind of a disconnect from you know, songs I'd listened to on the radio or on CDs and tapes at, you know, my house, you know, houses where I grew up with my parents and stuff. But yeah, and then it really didn't dawn on me until I got to a point where I was making my own stuff in the you know, the mid 2000s. It's funny because I've been on kind of a little bit of a nostalgic TTA kick again, and thinking about you know, those were genuinely my earliest you know, points of, okay, I need to set the right music for whatever is happening in, you know, the scene that I'm doing. And because before that, I mean, my musical tastes, people ask me, oh, what kind of music do you like? And it is one of those, like, you know, if I had a bunch of CDs for my car, I'd be like, I don't know, whatever's in there, find out. It's kind of Russian roulette of music, I guess. But yeah, I've grown over the years to appreciate a little bit of everything, because even genres that I disliked as a kid, you know, stuff like country or rap, you know, like hardcore rap and, you know, like really, you know, country type stuff. You know, and usually it's a matter of, oh, okay, like I can appreciate the actual performance of it, and I love the actual sound, like the, you know, the instrumentals and everything. But sometimes it's just not like the lyrics or the content of the songs that I, you know, am digging all that much. But I find everything, you know, is all kind of influencing me in different ways. And I've tried to infuse a lot of that into what I work on. But so kind of to start with, when I was doing TTA at the time, you know, for a short while, it was literally just whatever it is that I had access to. There were like, a very small handful of websites that I could actually find MP3s for in that era for, whatever I had access to. I used quite a bit from Mega Man 7 and 8 and a racing Mega Man game called Rockman Battle and Chase that I don't think we got in the US. And a lot of Final Fantasy music from mostly 7, 8, and 9, I think is what I had access to. And that was literally just whatever I could find. So there wasn't really like a creative decision behind just using like the Sephiroth final battle theme from 7, like while Alpha fights against Raccoon. It was just because, like, I don't know, that's all I got. You'd think I'd be using Mega Man Battle Network music, but I just didn't have access to that. I couldn't easily find MP3s. There was no like Galbadia Hotel or KH Insider, whatever, those kind of sites where you could just find or even YouTube where you can just like, YouTube to MP3, convert something, and then suddenly you have whatever song it is. That wasn't so easy back then. And then as the 2000s kind of continued and more sites like that popped up and other people I knew that knew how to rip MP3s and stuff off of CDs from, OSTs and things like that. And my collection slowly but surely kind of continued. If you watch TTA, again, not that I necessarily recommend doing that all the time, although it is all up on my YouTube channel if you guys want to see it. You could see as my music library continued to grow and grow and grow and grow with each episode. Really, after a while, it was just like whatever I got and I can throw in there and use. So quite a bit of that, and then kind of all of that culminated into ultimately what I wanted to do with the 2011 Tome series when I was, that was one of the earliest things that I was having all original music for. In that. So it became, I was working with guys like Wes and Yoav and, other folks, Stephen Kelly, that would be able to compose stuff. And in the case of Wes, it's funny because I've said this many times. We've talked about this in some of the commentaries for the Tome 2011 episodes. But he had created a whole bunch of music for a game project he was doing, an RPG Maker, that kind of ended up not really happening. And he decided, I decided when I listened to a bunch of it, and then he just sent me a giant folder of just a bunch of stuff that, he had from over the years. And I decided, you know what, I'm just going to use all this because, it works so well for everything that I need for the show. And as it turned out, which is good, this is a good sort of transition into my general sort of taste. It was exactly the type of video game kind of style 16-bit chiptune music that I already was in love with anyway, so it was kind of serendipitous. So it's no surprise. I love old school video game music, like absolutely. And I love NES, early 8-bit kind of stuff. I love N64, PlayStation, kind of stuff, but it's that sweet spot in between. And specifically, Super Nintendo style 16-bit chiptune music, I just adore. And again, not to say that, Genesis and other 16-bit era music isn't also great. Absolutely. But although Genesis has a little bit of a lesser ratio of, at least in all the OSTs that I've listened to, I've found that I've generally liked, more Super Nintendo style OSTs. Even from games that I've never heard of, that I've never played in my life, more so than any random Genesis game. Genesis, I think it has to have specifically really good composers to make use of the sound chip in the best way possible, at least in my opinion. But I'm sure probably a lot of people would argue that. But I love it all. I love all that kind of stuff. But I found specifically that the Super Nintendo 16-bit kind of stuff was really what kind of turned my crank creatively. And especially with the aesthetic I was going for with Tome at the time, where I wanted, that kind of sound to the BGM. And that was a lot of what, Wes was already doing with this music. And he had some 8-bit versions of a lot of it as well. That was just a kind of a match made in heaven. So he was kind enough to just give me a whole library worth of stuff that he had, and away I went with using it for the show. And then when I was working with like Yoav and Steven and guys like that, where I would do like in my own case, where I would be arranging some of Wes's tunes and giving them to some of the other artists to do remixes of based on the timing and specifics that I needed them to be and everything. I felt like I was a real musician to a certain extent, and that, like, okay, I'm not a composer and I'm not a real arranger, but I understand production in the sense that I can consider myself like I know, I understand music and I understand what it is that I need for my own stuff and what it is that I like. I'm big on leitmotifs. That's something I've talked about in regards to. I did a podcast episode a long time ago about the music and the sound of Dragon Ball stuff in particular, because Dragon Ball has a lot of different kind of musical styles to it between the old show and the games and Kai and Super and all that kind of thing, the movies, etc. But and then funnily enough, as I kind of went through. What are the OSTs, from Super Nintendo games that I kind of like the most, that I've listened to the most extensively. And I realized, kind of from, working with, I guess, a quote unquote more primitive, kind of, sound system, I determine what other types of just regular music that I like in general. For example, really ambient, chill stuff, a la the first Donkey Kong Country. When I worked with Crusher, CN on because of course I had Wes just straight up do classic style 16-bit music for the Adotis Woods region, but then like for Morganite Valley when I worked with Crusher. I had been familiar with their stuff, and I told them I wanted this very like piano, chill, ambient kind of, sometimes a haunting at certain moments and for certain tracks, kind of thing. And obviously they do a lot of Vocaloid, techno-y kind of stuff, and there was a little twinge of that in there. But because like I go back and I feel like it's the Donkey Kong Country OSTs, I think, more than any other from the Super Nintendo era that I think I adore. I think that series, that trilogy, probably has my favorite collective amount of music from a whole series altogether. I'm sure that if I stopped and thought about it, like, there's probably others that I love just as much or maybe even more. I know obviously people are going to think, oh, but Mario RPG, and then say, no, I know, but I mean, there's a lot. And DKC, Dave Wise and Evelyn Fisher, I think her name was, like, the two of them, I mean, they did great stuff for those, like, absolutely. And it's funny because both for video game music and just for regular, like, I guess kind of lo-fi sort of music and stuff as well, there's a lot of crossover with the kind of instruments that they use and the sort of vibe that they have that I personally really like, and I notice it kind of goes hand in hand. In fact, actually, another person who's really good at doing that is VHS Cassette Blink, who I've worked with quite a bit as well on some Tome stuff and otherwise. And when I found their music too, that was another case where I'm like, oh, this is really like along the lines of kind of what I want. Often when I think again about like, oh, scenes that I want, kind of cutting back to that earlier bit about, okay, what am I picking, for stuff that I need for a particular sort of emotional, invoking for what a scene is happening and something that I'm creating. I will often think about, okay, is something else coming to mind first, like as a pre-existing piece of music, often from a game or maybe from a show or something, or maybe even just a song. And I'm like, oh, I want something kind of like this. And I've noticed that for a lot of somber or kind of just like laid back sort of, a big versatile kind of example of that is that very chill ambient kind of music. Even thinking about jumping ahead to Balancing Act, like, the very first scene, which involves Frost when he's a little kid, I imagine something very chill and very ambient, and maybe even something akin to like kind of the ice and snow levels from the three Donkey Kong Country games. Maybe with almost a twinge of disturbingness to them because there's some bad stuff that happens in that very opening sequence. I'll tease that a little bit there. On the opposite end, another thing that I realized had a lot of crossover, actually specifically with the 16-bit stuff, is 80s synth kind of music. Like, I think about, just as a couple of examples, not that these are some of my favorite songs necessarily, but just to illustrate what I mean. Don't come around here no more. That part towards the end of the that little like synth piano section. I think of Cloudman stage or a lot of the music from Mega Man 7 specifically. That instrument is what reminds me of that so much. And then also even what is it? The oh my god, straight up now, tell me, is it gonna be you and me forever? Oh oh oh, the boop doop 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 doop. Sounds like Genesis. Like that part of the BGM really strikes me as like a good Genesis OST, like a Sonic, kind of game or something. And even, okay, this is a weird one. I think that part of what made me, not only because of a lot of the '80s classic music that I grew up with in as a kid, but I think also specifically of all things, maybe it's not that surprising, coming from me, but Thomas the Tank Engine, because I know it has a specific name because guys like Sudri and Afro Music I worked with on Tone briefly. They did a song for the minecart level, the minecart racing battle mini game at some point. They have like the exact synth that they use. The two guys that did the music for Thomas the Tank Engine. So it's this very specific synth, but sometimes I'll hear it in songs. Like there's what is it? The all of my love during the kind of instrumental, the that same thing, that synth. There's something about all those examples I gave, like those kinds of synths that just make me feel so happy and safe and nostalgic. Probably because they make me think of Thomas the Tank Engine. I don't know what the hell that says about me, good or bad. But it's a thing. It's certainly a thing. But even now, I remember a big thing that I kind of associate with that 80s style kind of synth stuff too is moving to LA, because as I started to get, I think I've said before that I really didn't feel like I learned how to drive full on until I actually moved to LA and had to drive on a constant basis over the freeway, to get anywhere in any length of time, basically. But I recall I was listening to a lot. There was this one radio station that I'm forgetting the name of, but they had this one part of it called the Art Laboe Connection. If anybody in LA remembers that. But there was one station that played nothing but like 80s and 90s classic, rock songs and stuff like that. And I remember like I would hear all that kind of stuff. That's what got me into Prince, for example. I really didn't grow up much with Prince as a kid. Somehow I missed his stuff. And became a big Prince fan for a lot of his songs. Just I couldn't be hearing them on the radio on a constant basis. So I also associate a lot of that music not only with a nostalgic sense of growing up as a kid, but also in my adulthood of living out here for the last almost 10 years now. At the time that I'm, it's coming up to it in a few months. It's going to be 10 months. Jesus Christ, or 10 months, 10 years. Jesus. So that's a big one. And I should have mentioned that was something that I gave quite a bit of direction to with Yoav and Nick Alexiak for the Telluria City region of the Tome RPG, is that 80s synth kind of thing. I remember one particular one was Let the Music Play, You Won't Get Away, was one that I gave as an example for the Platinia skyscraper kind of infiltration level. That in particular was a big one that I had in there. So, and then thinking about, when I got to work with Plasterbrain, who is brilliant, and she does amazing compositions. I loved everything that she got to do, both original and remixing for the Tome game, for the Orange Islands region in particular. I was trying to think about big influences on that, and kind of transitioning into just other songs and stuff that I like too. But I've always noticed that a big thing, and this also goes into not only BGM that I've worked with, but also theme songs. This is kind of going into the deeper sort of things beyond just background music and OST type stuff. Is I'm a huge fan specifically of the combination of rock guitar and strings. I think that's why I love His World from Sonic 06 so much, and that kind of stuff. A lot of the Sonic butt rock songs that would use both rock and strings and violin. There's just something about that combination that's just ooh, so good. And even for specifically Heroes Don't Ask Questions and Together We Shout as One, where I had, particular kind of influences like the horns as well. I think of some of one of the Dragon Ball heroes, that Dragon Ball hero, which had strings and horns and trumpets and rock in it. Like, oh God, like just that. And it's funny because even thinking, and this kind of goes back to the very beginning here. I've really not watched much of Saint Seiya. I feel like I should because I'm sure I'd enjoy it at some point, but, Wes was a huge fan of that, and Alejandro as well, obviously, and we've both gone on to work on Saint Seiya as well. But I love the opening theme to that series, the original Pegasus Fantasy song. Like that's like one of my favorite anime openings ever, and it's for a show that I've barely seen much of. I've seen like little bits of random episodes when Wes was watching it on Netflix at the time. And I'll swing back to the anime openings. Actually, no. While I'm thinking about it, yeah, that in particular, that is just that in general is something that is supremely influential, because even now, and it's funny, maybe if I get some proper earplugs to listen to stuff while I'm working out at the gym, because those of you who don't know, I'm working out 4 days a week at the gym now going forward, because I'm going crazy on that, trying to improve my body and everything. But I find that when I want to really get myself jazzed about something, whether it's, wanting to do drawing or animation or writing or, even, just hanging around and just recording, like voice recording as well, if I would need to do an audition or going for something, and often I would actually, this started with this because this is what got me to sing, is anime openings, because I can remember looking up the lyrics in Japanese to Chala Headchala and We Got a Power, just because I thought the songs were so rad that I wanted to learn how to sing them, and that's something that got me to sing more in general. And then it kind of expanded outward from there, because I remember, looking up, Pokemon anime openings, the Japanese ones that I didn't get to hear in the US, obviously, a lot of that stuff. And still, even now, there's shows that I have heard, the openings to that I've not really watched. There's a lot of shows going back many years ago that I just know the opening theme song to, or sometimes even the ending, or, whatever. There's so many of those that stick with me. I actually, in fact, I had, saved up for a while. I should go back and even reformat it and maybe actually do it at some point. But I wanted to do a TikTok about my top 10 favorite anime openings. And I've not yet done that. I really, really should at some point, because it's be such an easy idea to do, frankly. But I love that stuff, and then that goes into, when I think about the kind of ultimate culmination of my music tastes and what I want to do with that creatively. I think in particular about what I'd like to do with Balancing Act. And so here's something to let you guys all know, kind of slowly but surely, about that. I really, and it's so funny, because this ended up kind of being done better and long before I could even do it myself. But the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy, and also Baby Driver, the movie Baby Driver, where they have the soundtrack of the film, it's whatever the main character is listening to, like in his iPod or his cassette player or whatever at that time. That's what I wanted to do with Frost. Going back earlier to that bit about the very opening scene of the movie is a bad thing happens to Frost. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to have, as sort of a coping mechanism of dealing with the trauma of something bad that happens at the beginning, as he listens to music all the time to kind of drown out his sorrows, kind of literally and figuratively. And I wanted that to be the case, where the majority of the stuff that you're hearing in the movie, which would be kind of a cross between all of the tastes that I've talked about the last 25 minutes, in a single OST, that's what I wanted to do with that in particular. And have that all be whatever Frost is listening to on his, iPod or whatever, his little music player, his MP3 player, whatever kind of, sponsored device it'd be, I guess. So yeah, that and that's kind of my goal in particular as I want to get to that point. I would love to have, here's my dream scenario. I would love to have all of my music tastes kind of represented in Balancing Act, through a combination of composing original stuff, including an anime style 80s and 90s anime style opening theme song, hopefully maybe sung in Japanese even, with proper Japanese lyrics, as well as lots of original stuff and music I could license from indie artists, both people that I'm friends with, people that I'm a fan of the work of, just, like indie artists, and perhaps like pipe dream, because this is an expensive endeavor, to be able to license at least one or two, like major record album songs. I won't say what they are because I don't want to necessarily put that out into the world. But there's a couple of sequences towards the very, very, very end of the project where I want to do that. I want to have the, like the kind of final part of the movie be, cause, as you all, probably know if you're familiar with my work, you might also know that I really like doing sort of like music video-esque sequences with a lot of my animations. And that involves, knowing exactly what the song is going to be. So I'd love to have something kind of set up like that where I could literally have, like a real licensed song that I would want to get and be able to afford and maybe do a cover of with other, singers and musicians that I work with and have that be part of the movie. That would be like dream come true scenario for me to be able to do something like that. So, but we'll see if I can get to that point. But that's a little peek into my mind in terms of what I love for music. So I'm really curious to hear from y'all about what you enjoy. So please, in the comments below, please tell me, what are some of your favorite video game soundtracks, favorite movie and TV series soundtracks, live action, animated, whatever. What are your favorite songs? What are your favorite artists? What are your favorite bands? Do you have any kind of crossover with the taste that I've talked about through this one today? I'm curious to know if maybe my own audience is the same audience of the artists and people that I really admire and that I love the work of as well. I'm kind of curious to know if that's the case or not. I know that a lot of you guys love the work of the artists that I've worked with on a lot of my projects before, so I'm sure there's probably something to that. But yeah, let me know. I'd really love to hear back from you all. So, but in the meantime, I am gonna head off. So this will be probably coming out just before the month is over. So January has been fun, pretty decent start to the year. Got to do some cool stuff so far. There's a lot more that I wish I could be doing, obviously, but you can go check the health update video that I did a little while ago to know more about that, of course. But yeah, that's going to do it for now. So everybody, thank you so much for listening. Let me know your thoughts below. And once again, if you would like to suggest future Kirblog topics, check me out at patreon.com/Kirbifer. I would love to see your thoughts on that as well. And here's hoping we'll have some cool stuff happening for the rest of the year. I've got Comic-Con in Alabama coming up in just a little while from now on the weekend of the 9th to the 11th of February, and I'm going to be going there with a whole bunch of lovely other guests and folks that I know that I've worked with over the years, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be a great con. It's been 10 years since I've been there. I think over 10 years now. So that'll do it. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Fare thee well.